Alright, hello and welcome to another Marvel Snap video. Today I wanted to take the chance, since the new season's right around the corner coming on Tuesday, to look at those cards that are releasing soon and give you my opinion of how good I think they will be. So we have obviously the Season Pass card, which is Captain Carter, and then we'll have all these Spotlight Cash cards also coming out this season. So starting with Captain Carter, she's a 4/3 ongoing. Add this card's power to your back row cards here. So this would be in this kind image here, right? You were talking about these bottom two cards. So the third and fourth cards that you would play to a location, and this power cannot be added to herself. So if she is the third or fourth card you played to that location, she will not gain her own power boost. So when you're looking at this, an obvious deck to look at is to run a Spectrum ongoing deck with it, where you have a lot of small cards since you want to buff up with Spectrum, and then you can also buff them with Captain Carter. I believe that it has been said that Sam Wilson's shield will not buff Captain Carter, which also makes sense because if you click on it in game, if you click the question mark, that gives you more details. It said any other Captain America, and she is a Captain Carter, not Captain America. So I believe it's also been said by the devs that it doesn't work, but I'm not 100% certain on that. So with that being said, I think it's a very big detriment to her that she doesn't work with Sam Wilson. But with that being said, I think Sam Wilson is still going to be a very good synergy, because you can play her on 4 and then you can move Sam Wilson's shield there for turn 6, and it'll be a back row card and it'll get her power buff. You can then also pair her with normal Captain America. He will give Captain Carter +2, moving her to a 4/5. So then you're giving 5s to your back rows. And then Spectrum will give another +2, so you can easily see her being a 4/7. My concern is how well she will do because of her cost. Right now you have Moonstone acting as the decent 4-drop in most Spectrum decks. So Captain Carter would be there to basically push Moonstone out. Moonstone is a card that helps you get wide because it can copy cards like Mr. Fantastic to add +6 to each location, and then you can play Captain America to that, and it gives +4s to all your other cards, or she would give +2s to all your other ongoing cards there as well. So Captain Marvel has some heavy competition, especially because she's looking at being a 4/9 with no work, and then I said she could be a 4/7, so it'd be a 4/21 with, you know, a lot of things going right. So it'll be an interesting card to watch. I'm just not sure she's going to be a great card. I see her only working in Spectrum decks, so she's going to be a very narrow card. So if you enjoy Spectrum decks, I would say definitely pick her up. It'll add versatility to those kind of decks. But if you aren't interested in that, I don't think she's going to be a crazy card like Galacta or Gwenpool that you're going to be missing out on all the time. Both cards which theoretically could also work because, right, she doesn't need to necessarily be an ongoing card. You could pair her with Galacta or Gwenpool and play her in a non-ongoing deck, but you have a lot of 4-drops then. You need some lucky Zabu hits. Maybe she does show up outside of Spectrum. I just don't necessarily see it. So yeah, and that's kind of my thoughts on Captain Carter there. So let's move on to the first Spotlight Cash coming out at the same time as Captain Carter. So coming out also this Tuesday, that isn't right, pretty sure this card comes out on April 1st, is Goliath. He's a 2/1 with the ongoing +1 power for each other ongoing card you have in play. A lot of notable things with Goliath here. One, he's a 2/1, so he works with Ravonna, who is an ongoing card. And 2, this addresses, in my opinion, a big problem that Spectrum has been facing for a while, which is having cheap cards that are big ongoing cards. So a lot of the time in a Spectrum deck, if you wanted a cheap 2-drop, you'd be looking at Sam Wilson, who's a season pass card who hasn't been in Spotlight Caches yet, I don't think. Or maybe he just got into Spotlight Caches. I don't think he's been in Spotlight Cache yet. Who is your big one, especially because he gives you a free ongoing card, and he buffs your Captain America. Outside of that, you're looking at Mojo Dazzler being the two big ones, both of which are super niche, and in Spectrum decks, Dazzler is a 2/4, 2/6 at best. This card can easily get to a 2/8, right? It's not unreasonable to think he'll get to a 2/8. And he can be cost reduced with Ravonna, especially with that meaning you can also now justify running Spectrum and Iron Man in those kind of decks because you have another card that will get bonus from the Ravonna. And this is also a card that would benefit from the Captain Carter, right? If you play Ravonna, you can hold on to this one cost card, play your Captain Carter, and then play like Goliath Iron Man on 5 or something, and then Spectrum on 6. So this gives you a lot of flexibility. I think this card's going to be very strong, once again, specifically in Spectrum ongoing decks. I don't really see him having a home. Even, I would be surprised if he even made it into like Onslaught style decks, because maybe, but I feel like you'd rather run other cards than him. I still think he's going to be a very strong ongoing card, specifically in his niche. But once again, if you aren't a fan of Spectrum ongoing decks, I would not hold my breath on this card. Next, coming out on April 8th or 9th, is Kaori. She is a 4/6, and the on reveal of each card in your hand gives one of your cards in play +1 power. So think of it kind of as the opposite of Gwenpool. Gwenpool hits your hand with a bunch of cards. Kaori's hitting the board for a bunch of power. So I think this is a interesting style card. It's basically going to compete for Gwenpool's spot in a lot of decks, and there's a case to be made that this is going to be better than Gwenpool in a lot of decks, like in its own specific type of deck. Because you could pair this card with Galacta. You could then play like Galacta into Shaw, and then you can Kaori, and let's say you have 4 cards in hand. If you hit Shaw 4 times, Shaw's going to gain +2 power for each instance, most likely. Sounds like individual instances. So you'd be looking at 4 power plus 8 power, so Shaw gaining 12 power. Obviously a niche scenario, right? But you get the idea. She also will pair very well with cards like Lasher with activated abilities that benefit from having a lot of power. So you can think of Lasher or Scarlet Spider that both benefit from just being on the board earlier. Because this could be your end turn drop. You could play something on 2 like Kate Bishop to fill your hand up a little bit, right? Add 2 arrows. And then you can Kaori, and then you can hit your Lasher Scarlet Spider, and then you can activate both those cards, giving really big power. So I think she will utilize a lot of cards that Gwenpool just can't utilize very well, and she also then synergizes with cards that want to have a lot of cards in hand. So you're looking at collector decks, Devil Dino decks, right, are kind of the style of deck that you would expect her to be good with. So the only thing holding her back is that she's competing with a very good card in Gwenpool. But I think that they are different enough that they will kind of split into 2 different decks. And I suspect Kaori will be a good card, a very good card. Probably pair well with something like an Iron Patriot deck as well, is what I suspect. Okay, and hopping into what, in my opinion, will be the best card this season. I talked about this on stream, and people thought that he wouldn't actually be a very good card. I think he's going to be an insane card. And that is Infinity Ultron. He is a 5/6 with the on reveal. Add 2 of Ultron's stones to your hand. So He is a 5/6, so he's a okay stat line. Right, he's 1 less power than something like Black Bolt Stature, Legion, Lady Deathstrike. And then he adds 2 stones to your hand. All of the stones are 3 cost stones. But before I even get into what they do, notable interactions are obviously Quinjet can reduce them down to 2 costs each, and Victoria Hand can buff give them all +2. And then they all have extremely strong effects. So starting with the Power Stone, on reveal, double Infinity Ultron's power. So congrats, you now have a 5/12 on the board. Ultron Reality Stone adds a drone here, set its power to Infinity Ultrons. So that is a 3 whatever, that adds a 6 to 12 power card somewhere. Ultron Time Stone is put a card from your hand here, so it's just a like Esson essentially, right? You just pull a card from your hand, put it on the board. Space Stone, move the lowest power enemy card here to the location of Infinity Ultron. So that one is probably the worst of them in my opinion. You can target something like an Iron Man, Dracula to just bump it to a different lane that maybe you don't necessarily care about, which, you know, could be beneficial. The unfortunate thing is you're moving it to Infinity Ultron's lane, so, you know, you probably are trying to win Infinity Ultron's lane, I would guess, but maybe not. In the Soul Stone, which is for each of your full locations, give one of your cards here +2 power. Okay, and then the Mind Stone, your on-reveal abilities here happen twice, so it's just Wong. But obviously it's Wong with, you can play one of these stones again. So I suspect that this card will be very good into the Iron Patriot decks that we're seeing with Victoria Hand. Iron Patriot did just get nerfed, but I still think it's going to be a strong deck even with how he currently is. And Infinity Ultron will add a top end to it. If you pair it with Quinjet, on turn 6 you would be able to play 2 stones and then both of Kate Bishop's arrows, so play out 4 different cards, which, right, can be insanely strong. So I think that he's going to be a very strong card, especially just because all of his stones are also extremely good. So yeah, I don't think he needs much more explanation. Hopping into the next card releasing, and it is, so I was very back and forth on this card. I was very confused by this card when I first saw it, and then I thought about it a little more, and I'm very excited for this card now. It is 2/2, and it is Strange Supreme. He gains +2 power from merging, and end of turn, merge one of your created cards into this. So think of it as a Sebastian Shaw-esque card. So he's going to merge with cards here that didn't start in your hand, and he is going to gain their power and then gain +2 power on top of it, similar to how when Shaw gains power, he gains +2 more. So an easy, like some really good cards to think about pairing with him is something like Brood. You can go Strange Supreme on 2, Brood on 3, and then he will eat both the Broodlings since they are created cards, and he will gain, right, 8 power. So he'll be a 2/10, so you'll have played 5 energy into that lane, and you'll have 12 power, and you'll have cleared board space. You can then think of also pairing him with other disruptive cards, something like Debris, and you can run him in like all the cards that work well with him, like Debris, Mysterio, Brood, Mr. Sinister, all also work fairly well with Cersei and Agamotto. Agamotto specifically when you're looking at his Mirror of Icons. So all of those cards are going to be extremely disruptive, and you're going to benefit from all the stuff that you're generating. Cersei, right, just increasing the cost, changing them into a random card that costs 1 more. You could even try to pair it with things like Sentry, get some Voids down, and then you can either Mirror of Icons them, Cersei them. You could technically have your Strange Supreme eat it. I wouldn't encourage that, but you could do it. So I think that he will enable and encourage some very interesting decks, which I'm excited to see. My only gripe is he's going to promote more Agamotto decks, which I don't want to see. I'm okay with not seeing Agamotto. It's fine. But I think he's a super interesting card, and I think he will be a very fun card to keep an eye on. Not sure he'll be the strongest card this season, but in my opinion, I think he'll be the most fun card that comes out this season. And last but not least, you have Hydro Stomper. He is a 3/2 with the ongoing +1 power for each time one of your cards moved this game. To me, he is a very boring card. Not to say he isn't going to be good, because I think he's going to be very good. Just not a very exciting card. You can just play him on 3. You can do your little move stuff. Let's say you, I don't know, like Gwenpool of Vulture twice. Gwenpool, Iron Fist, Vulture, Gwenpool, right? You move 2 cards around, and you have this guy on the board, Craven on the board, and then you Heimdall all of that. Your Vulture is going to be huge. You would have then moved 5 more cards, I think. So you're getting +7. Hydro Stomper is a 3/9. So, and that's not even a very optimal play line, right? Like, we're not even talking about, oh, you had Madam Web down and you're moving cards in and out of that constantly, or you're running a move bounce deck and you're moving cards all the time. This is just like, you did a little bit of moving and then you Heimdalled. Hydro Stomper is just going to be like crazy high power, like for free basically. So I think he'll probably be good. I think he'll be ran in a lot of move decks. You could even maybe revive Hercules, because that gives you an extra move every time. So maybe that could be relevant as well. He could bring that card to relevancy. But yeah, I think he's just going to be a massive stat stick that you probably will want in every move deck, but you're obviously not going to use him outside of move, so if you don't enjoy playing move, you can easily pass on this one and sleep easy at night. But yeah, so those are all of the cards coming out in the What If season of April. Like I said, I think that Strange Supreme will be the most fun card. However, I think that Infinity Ultron is going to be the best card coming out next season, including the Season Pass card of Captain Carter. But as always, you'll have to wait and see, because it can be a little hard to predict these cards. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, letting me know, subscribe if you check out. I'll see you in the next one.